Good afternoon and namaskar. Before coming here, we were wondering what to speak on, right? Because the topic is AI, so naturally we talk about lending, fraud prevention, and customer service, etc. Right? But again, we felt there's a large number of fintechs who are already working on these topics, and they are, experts in this area, so they need not do a repetition of that. So we took a call that let's talk about something which is, more, I would say, from governance perspective, is more relevant to the industry, which might be overlooked when a service is designed using AI. Because we have been talking to many fintechs, and what we realize is that technically you can do many things, right? But what is doable? What is something that meets the regulatory requirement or comply with the laws of the land, right? So from that respect, we felt responsible AI, the ethical AI could be a topic which is very relevant in the current, times, right? So that's about me. So we see AI everywhere nowadays, right? Whichever application you see across domains, not just financial sector, across domains, you'll see AI everywhere, whether health tech or whether it is e-commerce or could be any area, right? And the numbers are there on the screen. Now with this, the point is, are we doing the right thing? Are we really scaling up in the right way? Okay. So if I say 32% CAGR in using AI and developing services, which gives 1 trillion additional GDP, does that really make sure that we are doing the things right way? Okay. And you can see some use cases: credit scoring, personalized finance, financial advice, fraud detection, and you can add few more: cyber security. You can add customer service. Now even Gen AI is there. So opportunities are unlimited that way. Okay. So we believe we should put in a governance framework, okay, in AI, which will ensure that the methods we adopt to develop the credit models or whichever model using AI are more explainable. I'll come to that. I think you also understand what explainable is, but I'll cover that later, right? So why responsible AI matters? Let's take case of lending. Lending is based on a lot of data: your bank statement, your ITR statement, your assets, your liabilities, could be anything, right? And I'm just thinking, as I speak, I'm just thinking of a scenario. What if a bank decides, I want to also check how stupid the person is, right? That I will lend to a person who scores less than 15% on a stupidity scale, right? So let's say we develop something called stupiditypro.ai. Okay? Imagine this solution. Okay, I'm just giving an idea to a lot of fintech founders. You can think of developing it, but yeah, we're not recommending it. Now let's say this solution, to prove how stupid Rakesh Ranjan is, will look at my, say, WhatsApp messages, will look at my LinkedIn post, look at my Facebook post, Instagram post, could be Tinder or whatever, though I'm not on this platform, but yeah, could be anything. And then come up with a score, okay? That Rakesh Ranjan is 65% stupid, so don't lend. Is it doable? How many hands are going up? Is it doable? 1, 2, doable? Doable? Yes. Is it ethical? Is it ethical? No response? No, right? But it is doable, correct? If somebody has an idea to make a stupiditypro.ai, they can always do it, correct? Therefore, The question is, why is it not ethical? Because there's a model which is looking at your personal data largely, looking at your personal views, right? Looking at your personal life, and also pretty intrusive, right? To create a profile of a person. Okay. Now, is this permissible? No, all of us agree it's not permissible, but technically it's doable, right? Even if you have an idea, even if you know there is a use case, which can be implemented or powered using this solution, but you can't do it because there are a lot of restrictions, correct? Therefore, the question arises, what are the responsible aspect of this, right? The ethical aspect of it, right? So, if you look at this slide, it's just high level, points on this, the regulatory challenges around it, or how fairness is being measured, in this. Essentially, we are looking at a system where an AI model runs on minimal data, doesn't know much about the person. But again, it's a balancing act, right? You don't know much of a person, but still you have to make a profile, okay? So a lot of balancing has to be done. Look at the Indian context. How many of you think rolling out an AI solution in India is easy? Your hand should go up. Is it easy? Is it tough? Is it tough? Yeah, please respond. Is it tough? It's tough, yeah? Because of a lot of, variations from state to state, city to city, north to south, east to west, right? Because our languages change, preferences change, needs change, right? There are many things that keep changing, right? So your model should not be, something like a very inflexible kind of a model which applies same rules to all sorts of, users. So I think we should be very much aware of the gender aspect of your solutions. Also take into account regional disparities, okay, that we have in India. Importantly, socioeconomic, choices, correct? Anything that excludes someone should be a big no, okay? If there's a loss of trust because of taking too much of data, okay, then it is like a loss of trust. For example, in lending itself, if someone uses my WhatsApp chat to see how stupid Rakesh Ranjan is, right, to lend the 10 lakh rupees to me, technically it's doable, but it is not ethical, right? So again, I'm taking the same point again, okay? So any AI model should always consider these four, you can kind of more, reasons to expand this, the strategy for AI for India. Importantly, every company must ensure that there is a careful or a very well-crafted strategy for data privacy, okay? Any data breach or any overreach in terms of collecting data should be prevented, okay? Because as a technical person, you might feel, okay, I've got more data, I've got better view about, my target customers. Therefore, there's nothing wrong in doing that. But that's absolutely wrong. Everybody, every fintech founder or a technology leader must ensure that the data is minimal. Okay? I'll give an example to you. You must have heard about RBI and RBIH solution called Mule Hunter. Some of you would have heard about that, right? Now, Mule Hunter is a solution, an AI-enabled solution, which ensures that we catch the potential mule accounts before settlement is done. Okay, or let's say, in near real time after settlement is done. Okay, if you look at the architecture of it, the data that we take is only payments data. Okay, even payments data, a lot of things are not captured because we believe this is not required. Okay, this is not required because it's a personal data. Can we have some proxies? okay, to make sure that we get the same profile of the person using proxy data as well, okay. So that's just an example, that we have also been following on this. But important point I want to drive is that loss of trust, okay? Because if you take more data and if the customer complains, then there's a loss of trust which is going to happen, right? So ultimately, we are looking at talking about, say, model governance, okay? Algorithmic interpretability and compliance frameworks. Now, what is model governance? I think I've said that earlier. The data which you take to train your model, okay, or data used to run your models, okay, must be minimalist, right? That is the first aspect of it. Should not be using PIIs, okay? Try to use proxies as much as possible, okay, to make sure that you still get the profile of your target customer accurately, okay? Make sure that the governance is owned by the leadership team, the governance framework, okay? Because they are going to be liable if in case a law is breached, okay? Or some kind of a compliance, the deviation happens, okay? Therefore, a lot of companies, I said earlier, are also already hiring a chief privacy officer and similar roles are being created in the industry now. Second is algorithmic interpretability. Any decision using a model must be backed by a reason. If I apply for, say, 10 lakh loans, right, and my loan gets rejected just because the AI model said, okay, Rakesh Ranjan is not a worthy borrower, and definitely the bank is going to lose money, then I should be able to go back to the bank and check why, and also I should get an answer from the bank why my application got rejected. I've seen some cases in the past where banks have denied, no, it's a very proprietary information, we cannot reveal, it's something internal to the bank, we cannot disclose. Now that's all I would say is not acceptable, okay. I think this requires some regulations to be developed, okay, and make sure that, and we should also ensure that the customer is not inconvenienced. At least he or she should know the reason why the person was excluded, okay, from certain service. Not just lending, could be any other thing as well, right? Because we are also very much conscious that India is driving financial inclusion in a big way, right? And if you look at the score, US are 44 on 100 some 10 years ago, now we are 65 or something is the current score, which shows we have made a huge leap in terms of adoption of these solutions and improving the outreach of financial services, right, to the population of India. So let's continue with that momentum and make sure that exclusion is minimized. Okay, you will surely have exclusion, but it should be explainable, right? Why exclusion happened? Okay. In some cases, you see, say a woman, say borrower. Now, traditionally in India, women don't have a good digital footprint, right? But that's changing for as of now. But a lot of people, women don't have this information, okay, in the digital format. Now, a bank, if they use only digital data, they will definitely reject the loan application because there's no data to support, correct? Now, that's again a reason which a bank must share with the borrower, the female borrower, right? That's important. So please make sure that, these things are built into your business processes if you are using AI for, running your services. The last one is compliance framework. Now, compliance framework is maybe regulatory, like our RBI drives or other regulatory drive, could be a law like a DPDP Act, or could be GDPR, could be any other similar law. So your solutions must comply with those guidelines, with those frameworks, with those laws. Otherwise, the risk of not compliance is much higher, right? Than giving a service. I hope you understand what I mean to say, right? And have an audit process in place. Auditors would definitely want to see how much of data, company is capturing, okay, to give a service. Now, whether the data is required or not required, their auditor can, make observations there, okay? Because we have seen a lot of cases, data being captured without having a real use of it, okay? Just because it's there, so you captured. Please don't do that. And the regulatory reporting structures, they're evolving as of now. I can't think of a regulatory structure which really measures this, but I'm sure this will come in very soon. It's important to mitigate your risks and creating a better AI. When I say better AI, means better AI governance structure. So my talk is mostly on AI governance, not really about developing a model or running it. Okay. Always be conscious about the fairness and non-discrimination. Okay, because if it is data enabled, now we don't know whether the data itself is bias free. We don't know. Correct. How do we ensure that? Definitely, you need to have some mechanism to identify whether there is a bias in the data. Okay, whether a bias or not a bias, some measurement technique has to be developed. Okay, I think some of you would have or be aware of this, but the techniques are available to identify the bias. Okay, if a bias is there, there is a high probability that someone will get excluded. Okay, now that should not happen. Please minimize that. Think of minimizing those cases. Transparency and explainability, as I said earlier. If I don't get a service, I have all the right to go and question why I didn't get a home loan, why I didn't get a some other service I requested for, right? So bank or a lender cannot hide behind proprietary information, because this is going to impact my rights. Okay, it's going to inconvenience me as an individual, right? So the model should be explainable. Why to reject it? Okay, and that will also give an opportunity to the service provider. If a rejection has happened, let's say a false rejection, okay, is there a way we can correct the model basis that? Okay, so such thing had to be built in. The entire governance strategy should be covering all these aspects. Inclusive data practices. Okay, so my point is, can we, looking at Indian context, where the diversity is pretty high, can we not look at models, which cater to a wide range of customer groups? Okay, and of course, continuous monitoring auditing is very important, where you ensure that any corrections to make your services better, to make them more inclusive, more fair, so on and so forth. And it's not easy. I know it's easier said than done, but pretty complex work. And I've been part of these initiatives. We do see a lot of data coming in, but the data may not be of good quality. And 60% cases with data is not of good quality. And I'm sure all of you would agree with that, right? How do we prevent that? So ultimately, it's important that as industry, we should come together to create those frameworks, to measure what we are doing, okay, and make corrections wherever required to make sure that we are good on AI governance and giving good services to the ultimate customers. So if you look at some of the AI applications, say fraud, to detect fraud transactions, or to say customer service, or underwriting of loans, or to using AI for other purposes, right? 3 or 4 things must always be remembered: privacy, the bias, and the security vulnerabilities. Okay, privacy, all of us understand. You can't go beyond a certain. You can't cross the line. Okay, you can't really take somebody's personal data and then potentially just keep it or misuse it. Okay, that's a big no, right? Bias, which is killing, I would say, a lot of models where the biases are not handled well. We have seen many cases where a bias actually excludes the customers, right? So please make sure that such a thing is not repeated. Compliance. Compliance, as I said earlier, is still evolving. I'm sure some frameworks would be rolled out very soon to make sure that the data that is being captured is put to the use for which it was collected. That's the only the simple point on this. So how do we do that? First, minimize the data. Okay, people, the designers, the architects, the business process designers must ensure that they evaluate the data sets. Okay, what data you require for what purpose must be defined very, very clearly. You can't You can't take data which is not relevant for a use case, even if it's available easily, okay? So please make sure that judgment is put in place very strictly. Data security, capturing PIIs and storing it on your servers. You may say my server is very secure, but you never know. Hackers are always ahead of you, right? So make sure that data is never stored or the PII is never stored unsecurely, okay? They should be always encrypted. Or first thing, don't capture. Use proxies, okay? If you have to capture, hash them, encrypt them. The rights of the customer are very important. The data represents a customer, right? So the data, you must be as a fiduciary or as a data owner, you must secure it, must respect the rights of the data owner, right? That's very important. Consent, you must have seen the DPDP Act, right? The 8 principles of it, right? They clearly explain the consent management framework. To give a consent, to revoke a consent. So as a data owner, I should have the power to control my data, whether to leave it with the provider or remove it, from the provider's system. Okay, that should be there, and the provider must honor those requests and should be able to transparently provide the status. All right. That brings to the one more slide is there. So again, disclosures as and when required, feedback channels. If a bank is inquired why my loan got rejected, should not be brushed aside by saying it's a proprietary information of the bank. A feedback must be taken from the customer and should be acted upon in the right spirit. Should have simple explanations. I cannot go and tell my customer, okay, your coefficients, were not perfectly aligned. So my deep learning model, through an error, that's why you are excluded. Would that make sense? No. People have to understand, in their language, right? Make sure that happens. The simple explanations. Fairness demonstrations. How fair you are. Can we measure the fairness, right? That's very important. So make sure that the governance strategy of your company or your services that you are developing, devising, has all these aspects built into it, right? So that it can be measured. Measure in the sense like measure and then do corrections basis that, okay? Because no model is perfect for sure in AI world. There's always scope for improvement. I think that's the last slide, I guess. Okay. All right. So these are the activities that have to be done, right? That's the AI governance framework. The risk has to be assessed every time you come up with a service, right? The model validation is very important, but requires data protection, bias detection, documentation, regulatory alignment, right?
Hello. I had a question regarding AI security and governance. What you told the slides, if you are training a new model, it's okay. But we are using the minimized data, everything, straight from the ground. But what happened if it's a pre-trained AI model and the security and governance becomes a big issue in case of DPDP or any other act, GDPR or some other things? Personal data should not be trained. But pre-trained models has been trained. We don't know on what data it has been trained and what bias it had, inherent risk. How you are going to address that?
See, that's what I said. You need to have a mechanism in place. I completely agree with you. You can't be very sure about the biasness in the data set,
Yes.
right? You can never be sure of that. If you get it a ready-made data set, you cannot have that information. Have those, frameworks, developed, okay, and put to use. Only then you can really make sure that you get those insights into the data sets you're using, okay. That is important. But yes, I completely agree with you. You cannot really filter out everything.
Yeah, we can't filter out everything.
But I'm sure as we go along, we'll definitely learn from each other. Have the industry level, frameworks, governance structures. Definitely we can align with that and make sure we can handle these concerns.
And further evolving, what you told, AI regulations are coming
Absolutely.
toward the world as well as in India.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Completely agree with you.
But can I answer his question also in addition?
Yeah, sure, please.
Yeah, sure. In fact, it's my son's startup in US. So we are building LLM guardrails. The question is now we are adopting more of the foundation models and the local data combined together to service customers, right? So there is, like Sir said, there is a natural bias, age or gender, all those things alongside, and you are using a foundation model which is trained on the massive data set which is in the internet, and we are developing LLM guardrails, okay, taking into consideration the compliance of GDPR, SOX, and DPDP, whatever it is. There are solutions available, but it is emerging.
Yeah, they are emerging. Yeah, agree.
Can I ask a question?
Can I Mac?
Yeah. Hi. So I think you mentioned and spent a little bit of time on data privacy and others, and how AI can, I think, take misuse to even greater levels. So in the EU, if you look at it, the apps, Apple App Store and Android, they have been banned from giving SMS reading and email reading access to fintechs and non-fintechs or any kind of companies. Why doesn't the same happen in India? I think, forget AI, the basic misuse of data in India begins at this. If you look at last 5 years, so many large fintechs and non-fintechs have been hacked. Okay, but still, even in today's date, 2025 May, it's a free for all. Yeah, any kind of Charlie app is asking for SMS access, email access, and there are seemingly no controls. On Android phones, there are no controls. Apple at least has the decency to make a pop-up appear and ask you whether you want the app to have access to your data or not. So I think the regulators have to play a role here rather than leave everything to self-governance, etc. वो तो उतना ही होगा जितना होगा at the end of the day.
And absolutely, absolutely. So I think it may not be very strictly implemented the way EU has done, but I think we are learning from them. Very soon you will hear, right? But importantly, the Android issue that you mentioned, right, or the data, the underlying layers, things are changing for sure. Okay, if you look at the initiatives taken by, say, DOT, right? They have put up this Sanchar Sati, Chakshu. There are a lot of initiatives are coming up, right, which are making sure that we don't release data so easily to the undeserving actors. All right. Secondly, we are moving towards a non-OTP based authentication methods, right? So these things will potentially fix the issues. So yeah, we are still learning, still in that phase of learning to make sure that we do something relevant to or similar to what EU has done. Yeah.
Can I? Yeah, thank you. A very basic question, I have little confusion. I think this ONDC, OCAIN and Uniform Lending Interface, to my understanding, all the three are trying to do something very similar. So out of the three, over the next 3 to 5 years, what do you think will scale up more and will be beneficial?
That's not a question on AI.
No, but I think, because I think you are working on Uniform Lending Interface, RBI Innovation Hub, I think you are the best person to answer the question, that aspect.
I don't want to compare these solutions because they got different intent, right? So, see, ONDC, ULI is very specific for lending, only for lending, right? But that way, if you see, ONDC is not meant only for lending. They are connecting buyers and sellers, right, to a common protocol across various services that they offer, right? There's a different approach altogether. It's not for lending. I mean, it can enable, say, healthcare, can enable e-commerce, can enable any other use case. But we are ULI is only for lending, right? OCAN comes close to ULI, but again, there's a different approach altogether because you are linking the data providers, the loan service providers, right, on a common network, right? So it comes close to that, but they are not similar.